Hello.
All right. My apologies to everyone for the brief delay here. This is obviously a very, very exciting day, as you can imagine, for all of us. We are recording this and it will be posted onto YouTube immediately after the press conference ends. Again, I'm Jared Genzer. I'm an international human rights lawyer based in Washington. I've been honored to serve as counsel to Felix Maradiaga and Juan Sebastián Chamorro, working with their extraordinary wives, Berta Valle and Cardenas, without whom their husbands would not be here today. It's been a very dramatic 24 hours, as you can imagine. And so we wanted to hold this press briefing this morning after Felix and Juan Sebastián got a little bit of rest to then give all of you the opportunity to see them and to ask questions as you may like. In terms of how we're going to proceed from here, Felix and Juan will each speak, both in first in Spanish and then in English. And then, of course, Vicky and Berta, I'm sure we'll have some comments as well. And from there, we will take questions. And the questions can be in either Spanish or English. And we will then pose the questions to them. Probably the easiest way to do this is to have you put your questions into the chat box. And we'll pose those questions to them after as well. So let me, with no further ado, turn it over to either Felix or Juan to begin. Juan, you want to begin?
Ok, no, bueno, antes que nada, comienzo en español y luego en inglés. Es un placer estar con todos ustedes. Muchísimas gracias por la cobertura que le han dado al caso nuestro, al caso de más de 224 presos políticos y todavía los 44 que han quedado. Gracias por la cobertura y ¿qué puedo decir? Después de pasar 20 meses en una prisión con mis compañeros, me siento muy contento de poder ser un hombre libre y estar acompañado de mi esposa, que ha hecho un enorme trabajo junto con Berta por la liberación de todos los presos políticos. It's a really important moment in my life. This last 24 hours has been crazy. I'm really happy to be here in front of you. And first of all, I would like to thank you for all the coverage that you have done for the last year and a half or so. And we are, ready to begin our new life as a husband and wife. I really want to thank my wife for all the advocacy and Berta's, all the advocacy that they have done. Without their effort, this had not been possible. Really, very emotional.
Vicky, do you want to say something?
I just would like to obviously thank Jerry for all the effort that he has done. Without him, this would not be possible, of course. Muchas gracias.
Buenos días a todos. Para mí y a todas, para mí es un día muy emocionante, muy feliz. Finalmente, después de 1 año, 8 meses y 1 día, después de este trabajo arduo con Jared y su equipo, a quien le debemos todo este acompañamiento, estos consejos, este apoyo continuo, el darnos la mano, el sostenernos en esta lucha por liberar a nuestros esposos. Además de darle las gracias a Jared y a su equipo, le quiero dar las gracias a Berta, quien ha sido mi hermana de lucha en todo este tiempo y que me ha acompañado en el dolor, en las alegrías, en las tristezas, acompañando a nuestras hijas y saliendo adelante. A todos ustedes, los periodistas, los amigos, las familias que nos han apoyado desde el día 1 y han estado pendientes de lo que pasa con nosotros, con nuestros esposos, con la lucha de Nicaragua, con todos los presos políticos. Estoy muy emocionada, muy contenta, porque lo logramos. Logramos la liberación de 222 personas. Aún nos faltan más, pero esto es un gran logro. Es una alegría para Nicaragua, es una alegría para las personas que creen en los derechos humanos, que creen en la democracia, que creen en la libertad, que creen en la paz. Los animo a todos a que sigamos esta lucha, a que sigamos apoyándonos como nicaragüenses. Se puede. Cuando el amor nos guía, se puede. Cuando tenemos la verdad de nuestro lado, se puede. I don't think I can do it in English, Jared. I am too excited, but somebody can do a translation. And I'm also, I cannot believe that I have my husband with me, and that my daughter, him and I are reunited again. And I am also very happy for Felix, Berta, and Ale, and for the rest of the families of the political prisoners who can hug their loved ones yesterday.
On my team, Juan, do you want to quickly do some translation of Vicky's statement?
Yes, yes, thank you, Vicky. And well, Vicky was mentioning, and for everyone here in this press conference, for all the journalists here present, that she's very thankful for every one of you, and she's very thankful for Jared and for our team, for the team that has been working really hard to get Felix and Juan Sebastián out. All the same, it's important. Vicky was always thanking Berta. As you all know, Vicky and Berta have been working together in this fight. They have become sisters in this fight, in this struggle, and in this plight against the regime. So it has been, they have become really close, and Vicky was very thankful for Berta. And she also wanted to thank every one of you present in this press conference today.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I do want to just emphasize for everyone that it was extraordinary to work with Berta and Vicky, who didn't know each other really, having only met once before, prior to their husbands being taken, and to have seen them come together and to become such brilliant advocates for their husbands was really inspiring to me and to my team. And they were, you know, as effective as any spouses of political prisoners I've represented over my 20-year career. And it's an extraordinary testament to their tenacity, to their strength, to their courage, and frankly, to their dignity and grace that they demonstrated through this horrific ordeal. And I have to say for me personally as well, that to be there yesterday, to have to be able to see firsthand them reunited with their families is both brought me to tears, and it's the reason why we all do this kind of work. Just an extraordinary inspiration to us all. So now let me turn it over to Felix and to Berta to take it from here.
Muchas gracias, Jared. En primer lugar, quisiera decirles que estoy profundamente conmovido y me quiero disculpar si no puedo expresar de la mejor manera, de forma verbal, lo que tengo en el corazón. Estoy tratando de contener tantas emociones encontradas, pero sí quisiera decir en primer lugar que me conmueve profundamente saber que aunque estábamos en un lugar de una desconexión con el mundo completamente inhumana, de un nivel de aislamiento que es difícil imaginar y describir en el año 2023, que existan en el planeta Tierra lugares en donde todavía hay niveles de encierro en donde ni siquiera una mascota, un perrito, un gatito, es aislado o encerrado de una forma tan extrema. A pesar de ese nivel de oscuridad, siempre hubo una luz. En primer lugar, la luz de la fe para aquellos que somos creyentes. Así que mi primera gratitud va como hombre de fe a Dios, a quien le doy la gloria de este milagro. Solo lo puedo escribir así, pero la luz de cada uno de ustedes. Veo acá muchos nombres de amigos y amigas de toda mi vida, no solamente extraordinarios hombres y mujeres de prensa, sino también activistas y amigos que estuvieron en todo momento. Y esa fue la luz que nos daba la esperanza, porque sabíamos que no estábamos olvidados. Yo recuerdo las palabras que me dio Jared poco antes de ir a la fiscalía, y Jared me decía, the worst fear of a political prisoner is to be forgotten. You will not be forgotten. Recuerdo que esas fueron tus palabras, Jared, y las cumpliste. Y no solamente Jared, sino cada uno de ustedes, a quien también le doy un agradecimiento, y a su equipo. Agradecerles a cada uno de los medios de comunicación que en todo momento levantaron una voz para que la situación de Nicaragua, no solamente la situación de personas como Juan Sebastián o personas como yo, que gracias a Dios tenemos plataformas que nos permiten elevar esa voz de manera global, sino que ustedes lo hicieron para cada uno, incluso de los presos políticos anónimos, que no tenían la posibilidad de poder contar la historia de dignidad humana, la historia de lucha de un pueblo que se llama Nicaragua, un pueblo que sigue todavía, a pesar de este momento de felicidad que es nuestra libertad, pero que sigue añorando la posibilidad de poder tener elecciones libres, de poder tener la posibilidad de hablar sin que las opiniones que una persona tenga le conlleven la cárcel, de sacerdotes de la Iglesia Católica que puedan celebrar misa y dar una homilía sin que por una homilía sean secuestrados, de pastores evangélicos de distintas denominaciones que puedan ejercer su fe, de personas de las minorías étnicas en Nicaragua que son perseguidos por razones vinculadas a sus tierras, de jóvenes universitarios que no se pueden organizar en sus universidades porque también son perseguidos, movimientos de mujeres que tampoco pueden ejercer sus libertades. Lo que quiero decir con esto es que, aunque suene muy extraño, le estoy agradecido con la vida de haber pasado este momento amargo, de haber cruzado este desierto, porque de ahora en adelante, y no es que antes así lo fuera, pero la lucha por los derechos humanos deja de ser un asunto solamente de principios abstractos o de teoría o de normas internacionales. Es historia de hombres y mujeres, como la historia de Vicky, de Juan Sebastián, de su hija, de mi hija Alejandra, de Berta, y de las madres, esposas, hijas de tantos presos políticos como los que hay en Nicaragua y en otras partes del mundo. Es decir, se convierte en una causa humana, íntima, personal. Son al fin y al cabo historias de personas que simplemente quieren vivir en países en donde se pueda ejercer los derechos humanos fundamentales sin tener que ser lanzado a un calabozo. Juan, can you please give me a hand? I know that I've spoken a lot, but I'm too emotional to keep on.
Of course, Felix. So Felix was saying that, first of all, he wants to apologize in case he could not express everything that he was saying because he's feeling very emotional at this moment. However, he was saying that even in the worst moments while he was in prison, while he was disconnected from the world, and even when this can happen in 2023, when there is apparently no light, there was always the light of the faith. And he really emphasized in the fact that his faith was really important for him during this process. So even in the places of darkness, there's always been faith. And also there's the light of everyone of the individuals that are here present in this press conference here today. So he was also mentioning the importance of all the journalists that are present here, a lot of friends that he recognizes here looking at the participants in this press conference. And that was also a big light in his darkness while he was facing this hardship in prison. Also, he reminded us of the words that Jared gave to him before he went to the public ministry in Nicaragua. And he was saying that the worst thing that can happen to a political prisoner is that of being forgotten. So he wants to remind us that it is important to keep dreaming of a Nicaragua with free elections, with a Nicaragua in which individuals, for example, are able to raise their voices, that student leaders can organize movements as young individuals, the same with feminist movements. So he's really hopeful about the Nicaragua that they have all been dreaming about, and that's why they work for it so much. At the same time, he tries, Felix was trying also to explain that after going through this hardship, he now realizes that human rights are not only about international treaties and international norms, but it's more about the stories of real people, real men and women, of individuals like Berta, like Vicky, their daughters, and themselves, Felix and Juan Sebastián, and that it really has become a cause that he wants to continue exercising in. So it's more about, it's not only about the norms of human rights, but it's also about the stories of real people, and that can really influence the way that this is a cause, as a human cause of human rights.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone here, and as Felix mentioned, God has been so good, always. There have been days where things feel very smooth, some days very hard, but I just want to mention that this has been a transformational process, personally, and I think as a country. I also want to thank Jared, and this is a little bit informal, but we were just, laughing yesterday, remembering so many stories and anecdotes. And one of them was when a journalist declared him as el abogado gringo. And now that I see back, I just appreciate so much.
Your gringo lawyer.
My gringo lawyer. And it's been just amazing to see how Jared have been a guide for us during this process. And personally, I have learned a lot from Jared. And Jared, thank you very much. I hope you keep this hard work. I don't know how you do it, but please do it, because having this reunification of the family is just worth it. Also, mi hermana de lucha, Vicky, I love you very much. I admire you. And this is part of the good things that have happened. I gained a sister, a friend, and that is amazing. And to each one of you, thank you so much for your words, for your help, for being there, for helping raising our voices. So there's a lot of work to do, as Vicky mentioned, but we believe with all our strength and heart that building this country for every Nicaraguan, it's possible. And that is our future. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Berta and Felix, and for the kind words as well. As I said all along, it's been a profound honor and enormous responsibility. And I think that it's also worth noting that, in my personal view, that without the extraordinary and relentless advocacy by Vicky and Berta, not only would their husbands not be free, but frankly, I don't think any of the political prisoners would have been freed as they were yesterday. At the end of the day, dictators never release political prisoners because they want to. They release them when they have to, and when releasing them is a least worst choice. And the reality is, given the massive prison that Nicaragua as a country actually is, that many families of the political prisoners who were still in Nicaragua were very understandably afraid to speak out on behalf of their loved ones, because many family members were detained after having done so. And thankfully, Berta and Vicky and their daughters were in the United States, which gave them the ability to be able to speak out publicly, advocating for their husbands. And in every meeting that we had, they were not just advocating for their husbands, they were also advocating for the release of all of the political prisoners of Nicaragua. So let's start to take some questions now. There are some that I'll start looking at in the chat box. If you have more any questions, please put them into the chat box and just identify yourself and your organization that you're with, and we'll work through all the questions that we have. And again, just grateful. I'll express my gratitude as well to the journalists on this call, that without your help in keeping a focus on what was happening with the political prisoners in Nicaragua, we also would not have gotten to yesterday either. And so this was, I think, very, very important. So just in no particular order, I'll begin with a question by Rodolfo Pina from Reuters. Oh, sorry, that was not a question, more of a comment. But he was asking about the ability to get a copy of this Zoom call. And for everyone on the call, as I noted in the chat box, as soon as the call is over, I will upload it to YouTube and tweet it out to my tweet out the link to my Twitter account, which is just at Jared Genzer, Jared. Genser. So, all right. So questions. The first one is from Dana Solomon from Reuters to Felix and Juan. How long were you in prison and what were the conditions like? When were you informed that you would be released? And what do you think motivated Ortega? So I'll either of you, if you want to unmute yourselves and answer that, that would be great.
Yep. All right. So I was kidnapped basically from home at the night of June 8th, 2021, without a judicial order. The police just entered into our house. Vicky was with me at the moment, and they took me. They took me to the Chipotle prison, and I stayed there 1 year and 8 months. So the nature of the capture was completely illegal. It was at night without a judicial order. Then they introduced a legal clause that gave, instead of putting ourselves into the judiciary system for 48 hours, I had to face a trial in 90 days. So they kept me 90 days without any kind of communication with my family. Anything, I didn't know anything about what was going on until the first visit of my sister. Obviously, Victoria had left already at that time, which was August the 31st. So I didn't see my family. I didn't know anything about my family from June to August. Then came the trial, which was obviously a farsa. It was completely false. We were accused of crimes against the nation, traitors to the nation, and it was at the jail. It wasn't at the courthouse, so behind doors, and I was unable to see my lawyer at any moment, even though the Constitution says that I have the right to speak freely and privately to my defense. So I didn't have a chance. The first two visits I did go to the courthouse once. That's when they put me 90 days in prison. That was at 2, 3 in the morning. The judge was there at that time, at that hour of the day, and so they extended the period of detention before trial from 48 hours to 90 days. And then they accused me, and we faced trial without the possibility of defending ourselves, and I was sentenced to 13 years in prison, of which I stay 1 year and 8 months, precisely 606 days, right? So that was basically it. We were put into buses in the middle of the night on Thursday. We were never told where we were heading to. Through the trip around the city, we inferred that we were going either to the Modelo prison or to the airport, which are closely located. So we were never told during the trip, which took about 40 minutes from the jail to this area of the city of Managua. And then I noticed that the first bus, I was on the third bus. The first bus turned right on the Air Force located at the international airport. So it was until that moment that I realized, that we all realized, that we were not going to Modelo prison, but that we were going into the outside the country. We were not told until we got into the runway itself. The plane was already there, and the high-ranking officer gave us a piece of paper, a very basic document, says, I, Juan Chamorro, accept to leave the country to the United States. And it was until that moment that we learned that we were heading to the States. And then the bus parked in front of the aircraft. There were a couple of maybe 5 or 6 people from the American embassy, and they informed us that we were heading to Washington, D.C., and that there were 224 people planned to fly that night. That morning, it was actually, when we got into the airport, it was around 4 a.m. So it was at that moment that we learned the full story and the magnitude of the amount of people flying outside the country. And as you can imagine, kind of a bittersweet kind of moment leaving the country on that plane, leaving Nicaragua, but at the same time being free. So it was a bittersweet, sweet in the sense that we were free, but bitter because we were being expelled from the country. We didn't know about the nationality law that the Ortega passed that very same morning while we were flying to Dulles International Airport, that basically stripped us from the Nicaraguan citizenship, which is, to a process started with an illegality and stay with illegality after illegality until the very last moment when they declare us to lose the Nicaraguan citizenship and basically expelling us from our own country. So very typical of a crazy dictatorship like Ortega's, where at the very last moment they did something like that.
Thanks for that. Let me just also add, because there are some other questions in the chat box around about around the all the political prisoners being stripped of their nationality. Indeed, as one of the questions suggested, this is a very clear and flagrant violation of international law. One has a right to their own citizenship and a right to free movement, in one's own country and to travel between countries. And so, I think that, we're going to have to look into more detail about, through what mechanisms we can try to challenge that that determination through various international mechanisms at the UN and in the UN human rights system, or through the OAS and the Inter-American Commission and Court of Human Rights. Obviously, today we're focusing on the release of all the political prisoners and Felix and Juan Sebastián in particular, but undoubtedly we will be very quickly turning to that issue and trying to figure out what ways we can go about that. Obviously, there's no venue in Nicaragua to bring such a case because Daniel Ortega controls not just the executive branch, but the judiciary and the legislature as well. So I think there has been interest in the chat box as well in having answers both in Spanish and English. I think that, given that Juan just gave an answer to the question in English, and because these are, I think, general topics that are of great interest to everyone on the call, perhaps Felix, if you wanted to chime in with your views on the question, but perhaps you can answer that question in Spanish so that people have an answer in Spanish and English.
Claro que sí. Bueno, Juan Sebastián ha hecho una muy buena descripción de la situación arbitraria. Él y yo, junto con creo que 2 personas más, fuimos efectivamente secuestrados el mismo día. Posteriormente, en días subsecuentes, empezó a dar otras capturas, así que los procesos fueron muy similares. No quisiera detallarlos con demasiada precisión porque ustedes conocen bastante bien lo que sucedió. Nosotros estábamos en un aislamiento extremo, así que no conozco los detalles procesales que se dieron, pero podría decir esencialmente de que fuimos juzgados en una situación o en condiciones nunca antes vistas, ni siquiera en Nicaragua, que bajo el régimen de Ortega se ha caracterizado por la arbitrariedad, es decir, el hecho mismo de que los juicios fueron llevados dentro de las mismas instalaciones de auxilio judicial, que en ningún momento se nos permitió acceso a los abogados, es decir, a ninguno de las personas que estaban secuestradas en auxilio judicial, conocido como el chipote, se nos permitió tener ningún tipo de asesoría legal. Con respecto a la forma en que fuimos desterrados, en la forma en que fuimos expatriados, pues es una situación que solamente la podría describir como orwelliana, es decir, fuimos tomados en medio de la noche y llevados a lo que nosotros suponíamos en ese momento podía ser otro centro de detención, y ya cuando los buses se acercaban en las instalaciones cercanas al aeropuerto internacional de Managua, ya suponíamos que veníamos para algún país, nos dimos cuenta que era Estados Unidos muy pocos minutos antes cuando estábamos frente a la autopista y se nos entregó un documento que en una línea decía escrito a mano Estados Unidos y nosotros aceptábamos por escrito con una firma de que salíamos del país voluntariamente. Nos enteramos ya muchas horas después de esta arbitrariedad de destierro, de despojo de la nacionalidad que no tiene ningún sentido, ni siquiera dentro del mismo régimen jurídico arbitrario, porque, por ejemplo, leyendo esta mañana, la supuesta ley, y digo supuesta porque no tiene técnicamente siquiera los elementos fundamentales, se despoja de nacionalidad a todas las personas que fueron juzgadas por la ley 1055. Bueno, ninguno de los que estábamos ahí fuimos juzgados por la ley 1055, que es una ley de carácter civil, no de carácter penal. En todo caso, ni siquiera esa misma ley tendría aplicación práctica para quienes fuimos juzgados de conformidad al Código Penal en un juicio que, insisto, no tenía ningún sentido, no tiene ningún sentido y jamás lo tendrá. Así que en eso coincido plenamente con lo que decía Juan Sebastián. Somos nicaragüenses, cada una de las personas que hemos pasado por este secuestro, tanto los que estamos estábamos en el Chipote como los que estaban en otras instalaciones, y lo seguiremos siendo siempre. Con relación a la otra parte de la pregunta, yo solamente quisiera decirles que no estoy, en mi caso personal, pues preparado para hablar con mayor detalle sobre las condiciones internas que estábamos viviendo dentro del Chipote, pero que simplemente diré que ningún ser humano debería estar en esas condiciones. Y precisamente por haberlas vivido, estoy más comprometido que nunca para que en Nicaragua finalicen ese tipo de arbitrariedades.
Great, thank you so much. So the next question we'll turn to is from Susana Gavinia, which is a question she's asking in Spanish, saying that Daniel Ortega believes that by sending all of you out of Nicaragua, that you'll stop fighting for Nicaragua and free and transparent elections. And so the question to both of you is, what are you going to do now? And so if perhaps both of you can answer in Spanish, because it was a Spanish question, and then I'll have my colleague Juan, who will then translate that into English. Do one of you, either of you.
Félix, go ahead.
Sí, bueno, en mi caso, aprovechar al máximo cada minuto con mi esposa, con mi hija, para reflexionar sobre el valor de la familia. He sido siempre un hombre de familia, pero realmente que cuando uno está en las condiciones que nos ha tocado pasar, es fundamental reevaluar el costo familiar que implica tomar las decisiones de Defensoría de Derechos Humanos y además de eso una posición política frente a una dictadura. Obviamente, como lo he dicho y lo reitero en este momento, nosotros como familia tenemos un fuertísimo compromiso con Nicaragua, tenemos un compromiso con la libertad y con la justicia, pero en cuanto a la ruta profesional, los pasos específicos que tomaremos, creo que es demasiado temprano como para poderles dar mayor información. Lo que puedo decir es que no vamos a descansar en ningún momento mientras veamos a una Nicaragua que tenga justicia, que tenga libertad y que tenga la libertad de los otros hermanos y hermanas que quedaron todavía en Nicaragua secuestrados.
Sí, yo solo agregaría de que precisamente por el hecho de haber sido víctima de la injusticia de un sistema totalmente injusto, nosotros no cometimos absolutamente ningún delito, y haber visto esa farsa de sistema judicial, de sistema político que gobierna o malgobierna Nicaragua, solo podemos salir más que comprometidos a luchar para que haya un cambio y que este cambio se dé hacia la institucionalidad, el respeto a los derechos humanos, el respeto a las libertades públicas. Yo creo que efectivamente la cárcel te hace cambiar, cambia a todas las personas, sobre todo si es por un prolongado periodo de tiempo, como fue el caso nuestro. Y ese cambio no tiene nada que ver con la convicción con la que entramos, sino que se refuerza precisamente en eso, que radica el cambio en haber reforzado esa necesidad necesidad de seguir luchando por los derechos, una vez viendo y sufriendo en carne propia el castigo de esa institucionalidad que está totalmente amañada, un sistema político que hay que definitivamente cambiarlo. Yo creía, o sea, se creía, ¿no?, que el tema de los presos políticos era un tema del pasado y lamentablemente en Nicaragua es un tema del presente que tenemos que seguir trabajando, no solamente por los 44 que se quedaron dentro, incluyendo Monseñor Álvarez, quien está en la modelo y que decidió no irse, lo cual es una decisión personal de él muy digna, no ser parte de ningún tipo de negociación, no solamente por ellos, sino también por las generaciones venideras, tratar de que efectivamente se dé un cambio democrático e institucional en Nicaragua para que esto no le vuelva a pasar a ningún nicaragüense. En 200 años de vida independiente, cada generación, Félix nos recordaba, su abuelo, sus padres fueron presos políticos, en el caso de mi familia también, y así han habido historias de generaciones tras generaciones. No ha habido una sola generación en 200 años de vida independiente de Nicaragua que no haya sufrido guerra, secuestro, violación a los derechos, exilio o asesinato, y eso tiene que cambiar.
Thanks so much, Juan. To my colleague, Juan, might you translate the two respective answers?
Yes, of course. So Felix was saying that right now what he's going to focus on this specific moment is that he was going to make the most out of every single minute with his wife and with his family. He describes himself as a family man, and he's going to reflect about the cost of assuming political positions against a dictatorial regime like Ortega's regime. So it's going to be a period of reflection and a family encounter for Felix. He also says that he has a very big commitment to Nicaragua, that they will not rest, that they still have a big sense of responsibility towards Nicaragua, towards freedom, and that they will continue working for that, and they will not rest. However, they will really, it is still too early to know the specific next steps, but they will definitely enjoy every single moment as a family, and they will keep committed with the cause of the freedom in Nicaragua. As in regards to Juan Sebastián, he's also saying that by witnessing firsthand being the victim of an unjust system, that also makes him very committed to continue working for the political and institutional change in Nicaragua. He was reminding us that for 200 years of independent life in Nicaragua, every generation, both in Felix's family and in Juan Sebastián's family, has seen exile, war, political prisoners, and exile. That means that this is this is a country that has faced a lot of hardships, and that this makes them more committed in order to continue working for Nicaragua. Especially because now they witness it firsthand, and that has increased their commitment towards Nicaragua.
Thanks so much. So let's turn to a question from Paula Escalada from EFE. And her question is also in Spanish. I would like to know what you think of the offer from Spain, which announced it will grant Spanish nationality to whoever wants it, and the fact that the U.S. has not made such an offer.
Bueno, en primer lugar, hay mucha gente a quien agradecer, no solamente a nuestras esposas y familiares, que es un agradecimiento importante, sino también agradecer a muchas organizaciones que han trabajado incansablemente, y agradecer a países también, agradecer a la administración Biden por haber hecho posible este viaje inédito realmente en la historia de Nicaragua y probablemente en la historia política de Latinoamérica. Yo creo que esto ha ocurrido precisamente por el trabajo en conjunto. El gobierno de España ha sido un gran aliado en la lucha por la democracia, por la justicia. En lo personal nos sentimos muy agradecidos por las gestiones, y estoy seguro que Berta y Félix también, pero en nombre de todos los presos políticos, el agradecimiento a España es particular, porque tomó el tema de no solamente los presos políticos, sino la democratización desde muchos años antes, y ha mostrado ese compromiso para con Nicaragua y el pueblo nicaragüense. Este es un ofrecimiento generoso que nos llena de esperanza, es una muy buena noticia, En lo particular, pues esto no lo estamos aprendiendo, estamos formándonos en estos momentos de esa política, pero estoy seguro de que muchos de los 222 presos podrían ya estar tomando decisiones al respecto. Hay un par de presos políticos que yo personalmente conozco, que tienen familiares en España. Estoy seguro de que es una política, una acción humanitaria sumamente importante, y me alegro enormemente de que haya tomado esta iniciativa que muestra la importancia del concierto internacional de países trabajando por los derechos políticos, por los derechos humanos. Así que estoy seguro que muchos de los presos políticos van a ver esto como una opción.
Juan, do you want to just summarize that, my colleague Juan?
Yeah, well, Juan Sebastián was thinking that thanking a lot of people that have been that have helped, a lot of governments, in particular Spain, that have offered help and support for this cause, and that's something that they have been continuously evaluating, and that they are really thankful for other organizations and the government of Spain, that it has always been an ally in this case, and that he knows personally certain political prisoners that might be interested in this option.
Jared, if I may add just a little bit piece of information which I missed, which I think is very important. Quisiera agradecer especialmente al eurodiputado español Pablo Arias por ese apoyo que personalmente, por este sistema de apadrinamiento de eurodiputados a presos políticos, tuvo con mi persona. No he tenido el placer todavía de agradecerle, lo voy a hacer este día, pero quiero hacerlo públicamente, el compromiso del eurodiputado Arias en mantener la causa viva y personalizarlo también en el caso nuestro, y estamos profundamente agradecidos con el eurodiputado.
Yeah, Juan Sebastián is saying that he's also very thankful with the European parliamentarian Pablo Arias, who has been sponsoring him through all this time and through all this hardship. And he also thanked President Biden for his support also in this cause previously. So yeah, he was thanking both President Biden and then in the last intervention, Pablo Arias, who was sponsoring him and offering him a lot of support. And he has not been able to meet with him personally since the liberation, but he wants to publicly express his thanks for him.
So let's move on to a question from, or at least part of a question from Chris Sherman from Associated Press. Part of the question's already been answered, but I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in hearing from both of you. He says, I know it's difficult to interpret from the outside why this happened, but how do you understand this? How do you understand that this sudden release happened, and what do you think led to it?
Quisiera empezar comentando, quizás para dar un poco de contexto, que el destierro, que he buscado la traducción y me sale en Google Translate exile, pero no es exactamente esa la traducción que quizás comunica con mayor precisión el espíritu de un concepto utilizado desde el Imperio Romano, cuando había alguien que ponía en amenaza el imperio y que solamente existía desde el punto de vista de la historia del derecho una banishment, me dice Berta, banishment, una alternativa para los que son abogados. Yo no soy abogado, pero de lo que vagamente recuerdo de mi curiosidad histórica, la alternativa que existía a la pena de muerte era el destierro, y así lo establecía el derecho romano. Posteriormente, durante la época de la colonia, se estableció en el derecho español el destierro para los casos de herejía, es decir, que aquellos que eran considerados herejes eran desterrados, y de esa forma gran parte del pueblo judío fue desterrado, en este caso, de muchos territorios europeos hacia las Américas. Luego, en las recientes establecidas naciones independientes de España, se continuó con la práctica del destierro como una acción que los dictadores tomaban cuando no podían lidiar con una oposición política que planteaba reglas del juego distintas, y el costo de asesinarlos, de enviarlos a la horca, de decapitarlos era demasiado alto. Hago esta reflexión histórica solamente para enfatizar que algo que ya fue borrado del derecho internacional, como es el destierro, está siendo nuevamente establecido en Nicaragua de una forma absolutamente ridícula, reformando el artículo 21 de la Constitución Política de Nicaragua, pero además de eso estableciendo la pérdida de nacionalidad, que es un tema que desde hace décadas está prohibido por el derecho internacional. ¿Por qué lo está haciendo el régimen? Bueno, precisamente porque el régimen se comporta de forma medieval. El régimen se comporta como únicamente se han comportado regímenes en los cuales las instituciones democráticas modernas habían encontrado soluciones para ese tipo de disputas. ¿Por qué lo está haciendo? Bueno, efectivamente, la alternativa de asesinarnos, que estoy seguro era una de los deseos que habían ahí, porque no hay una explicación para poder entender por qué se cometieron tantos asesinatos desde el 2018. No vamos a olvidar de que gran parte del encarcelamiento que sufrimos personas como Juan Sebastián y cada una de las personas que estaba detenida en la Modelo y en la cárcel El Chipote es porque reclamamos de que había crímenes de lesa humanidad. Yo quiero insistir que cuando yo salí, por ejemplo, de la fiscalía, mencioné de que no en ningún momento había atentado contra la soberanía nacional de Nicaragua, que fue la entrevista en la fiscalía, que lo que habíamos hecho es denunciar graves violaciones a los derechos humanos. Y ese video, donde a la salida de la fiscalía mencionábamos eso, fue la única prueba, supuesta prueba, que lograron presentar durante los juicios. Yo voy a insistir de que esa misma afirmación que hicimos muchos de nosotros antes de los juicios y que llevó a nuestro secuestro, lo vamos a seguir reiterando. En Nicaragua se han cometido graves violaciones a los derechos humanos. Nuestra preocupación no está bajo ningún punto limitada a un tema electoral, a un tema de buscar una candidatura presidencial. Eso se resuelve relativamente fácil si existen reglas del juego claras. Nuestra preocupación son el colapso de las instituciones democráticas y los derechos fundamentales de los nicaragüenses. Yo quisiera, con el permiso de nuestro moderador, Jared, veo que hay una pregunta aquí en el chat de Jessica que dice que cuáles son las preocupaciones fundamentales que tenemos, y quisiera aprovechar la respuesta para agregar lo siguiente. En primer lugar, que haya una pérdida de interés global sobre lo que está pasando en Nicaragua. Esa es mi principal preocupación. Y por tanto, que las voces se sumen para mantener el caso de Nicaragua como una preocupación internacional es fundamental. Y no es solamente porque sea el país que amo y al que le voy a dedicar mi vida entera. No es solamente por eso, sino porque lo que está pasando en Nicaragua debe ser tomado como un estudio de caso para el colapso de las instituciones en cualquier lugar del mundo. Quitar la nacionalidad, el tema del destierro que mencionaba hace un minuto, es algo que es completamente inaceptable bajo cualquier perspectiva política o jurídica.
Yeah.
Good, Juan. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was all said. I think it's important to translate. So Felix was doing he was doing like a historical reflection of the context of the legal figure that the regime is now utilizing in order to strip them of their nationalities. So he took us like through a journey of like how the figure of exile and banishment, which would be the exact translation to what they are to the word destierro, which is what they are facing at this moment. And he was explaining us that this figure comes from Roman law and from Spanish law, in which banishment, in this case, or destierro in Spanish, is basically what dictators used in order to have as an alternative to the life sentence or to the death penalty. So in this case, we are seeing that over the evolution of time, over Roman law and Spanish law, the crime, the punishment of banishment or leaving someone in exile, which is a word that also used in English, but the exact translation would be a banishment, has been used for the most serious of crimes, for example, heresy, or really as an alternative to life sentence and death penalty, as Felix was telling us. He was also explaining that this is a figure that has been erased from international law and is not accepted under international law. However, the regime is using it. That means that the regime is using legal figures that come from the Middle Ages in order to silence the opposition. In particular, for the case of Felix and Juan Sebastián and the other 222 political prisoners, The figure that is being used is a reform to Article 21 of the Nicaraguan Constitution, in which it is being established that individuals who were sentenced and convicted under under the Sovereignty Law 1055 will lose their nationality. However, they haven't even been convicted under the Sovereignty Law 1055, but under the criminal code, as Felix was explaining. So he was definitely telling us that the regime is using measures that are coming from the Middle Ages in order to silence the opposition. And he really wants to emphasize that what is going on in Nicaragua should actually be a case study of institutional collapse and of serious human rights abuses that are going on in that country. So he really believes, and in order to answer one of the questions from the chat that he also wanted to do at this moment, his biggest concern right now is that there is a lack of attention, of global attention, to what is going on in Nicaragua, particularly because there are serious human rights abuses going on there. And that is his most pressing concern at this moment.
So let me turn to another question, or part of a question from Pedro Rojas from Univision. And I'll ask Juan to answer this one, and perhaps Juan, you can do the answer in English, because we're kind of going back and forth between Spanish and English. But the question is, do you believe that it was the First Lady of Nicaragua that was the person who decided to release the political prisoners? And do you have hope that to one day return to Nicaragua?
Hard to tell who made the decision. I wasn't there, so we can only speculate on who made the decision. I really don't know how this thing happened. I only perceive that the thing happened really quick, really in a very fast way. It's really you know, at the end, I think the pressure, the political pressure of the prisioneros, the presos políticos thing became a burden to the Ortega regime, even for the people, the Sandinista people. They were tired of, they've been tired of abuses. So I think he wanted to basically send the opposition outside of the country into exile, banishment. I think he wanted to send a message that he kind of pardoned the political prisoners by freeing them, and also sending to the United States, which is, you know, very consistent with that argument of the United States being the empire against humanity and so on. So this he's been used this action to reinforce his speech. Has been doing it for whatever 40 years now of repeating the same thing and basically sending us abroad. And I think that what was the second question?
The second question was about returning to Nicaragua.
Yes, absolutely. I am Nicaraguan. I love my country. I know the conditions at this moment are extremely difficult. We'll see how things turn out. Right now, the priority is to stay with my family, to kind of, well, we lost almost 2 years. We need to be more together. That's the priority at this moment. And obviously, if the conditions persist as they are right now, it would be suicidal to go back to the country, because I will be put in jail after my return. So I see myself living in Nicaragua, free Nicaragua, democratic Nicaragua, and I keep a very strong hope that this will happen. It happened before. It happened several times, actually. Nicaragua, unfortunately, has been a country with a long tradition of dictatorships. Unfortunately, dictatorships that last long, but they always end. There's always a finish, an end for a dictatorship, and I think Ortega will not be the exception. The Ortega regime will end. We hope it will end sooner than later. Only history will tell us, but definitely I am Nicaraguan. I love my country, and I you know, it's the purpose of what's next is to work for the establishment of a free and democratic Nicaragua in which nobody ever again will be put in prison because of the things that we say. I have to mention that the proof that the prosecutor presented in my case was that I wrote a single line on a chat on my cell phone, which they didn't capture anyway. So I was sentenced to 13 years in prison for just a line that I wrote in a private chat. And the content was nothing related to politics. It was just that I was going to send privately the e-document. So they used that evidence, so to speak, that I was part of a member of an organized crime organization, and I was sentenced to 13 years in prison. That's how ridiculous dictatorships can become, being convicted, sentenced 13 years in prison for something that you wrote in a chat.
Juan, do you want to translate that to Spanish?
Yes, sí. Bueno, Juan Sebastián nos estaba comentando que tiene, digamos, tiene un sentimiento un poco, tiene un sentimiento optimista sobre lo que está sucediendo. Nos está incluso diciendo que, que no considera que digamos, que tiene todavía la esperanza de ver una Nicaragua libre, de ver una Nicaragua sin dictadura. También nos estaba comentando acerca de cómo fue su condena por 13 años de prisión, que fue básicamente por un chat, y nos estaba comentando lo difícil que es pues tener una condena por algo que tú escribiste y por algo que básicamente es el ejercicio de un derecho. Entonces nos estaba comentando que esa fue la única prueba que tuvo la fiscalía para condenarlo para 13 años de prisión.
Thanks so much, Juan. So our time for this press briefing has formally ended 1 hour, but we will continue to answer questions as long as people have them. So we will continue, but obviously if one needs to drop off, feel free to do so. And we will, as I noted before, after this is over, we'll be posting the video to YouTube, and I'll be tweeting out to @JaredGenzer the link to the video if one wants to see it later. So now let's turn to a question from John Feely with the Media Integrity Center. He congratulates both of you for the example of as political prisoners having faced tyranny with such extraordinary courage. The question is, do you believe that U.S. sanctions contributed to your release, and what are the implications for the democratic opposition in Nicaragua following your release? And so why don't I flip this to Felix to answer, perhaps Felix this time in English, and we'll translate. Next answers will be given in Spanish and then translated to English.
Yes, thank you for your question. I think that it's and this is only an intuition, as you may know. I haven't had time to really read all the news and make an informed judgment of what really worked on this. Was it the humanitarian action and perspective? My sense is that it was a very well organized humanitarian international advocacy in one side, but there was also the stick in the other hand, so to say. So which worked better than the other one? It's a question that I'm not prepared to respond. What I would say is that the aggregate of all the collective efforts of organizations, lawyers and their teams, such as Jared, human rights organizations, and of course the commitments of governments such as United States government, Spain, and so on. I think that one of the lessons learned is that working in this kind of cases is very, very complex, and it requires not a cookie cutter approach, but a very well designed strategy for the particular case. And of course, the case of Nicaragua is probably among the most complicated ones.
Thanks, Juan. Go ahead, Juan.
Sí, bueno, Félix les estaba comentando que, digamos, hasta el momento no ha tenido, digamos, la oportunidad todavía de leer todas las noticias y todo lo que ha ocurrido desde que salió y desde el tiempo en que estuvo en detención. Sin embargo, sí tiene una intuición y su sentido le informa que tiene que ver con tanto la incidencia internacional en temas de derechos humanos como toda la presión internacional en materia de sanciones. Todo ha sido un esfuerzo colectivo y todo el agregado de todas las acciones a nivel internacional son las que han llevado a que se haya ocurrido pues esta liberación. También habla de los esfuerzos de los abogados internacionales de derechos humanos, las organizaciones de derechos humanos y digamos todo el nivel de incidencia internacional en derechos humanos, tanto el tema de sanciones como algo agregado, pero no tiene digamos una respuesta concreta de cuál pesa más sobre el otro, sino como todo el esfuerzo colectivo en esta materia.
Thanks so much. We'll now turn to our next question. And this is from Jessica Ludwig, the director for Democracy at the George W. Bush.
Bust on my eyes, they eat my ass just like apple pie. If they keep fucking me like this, I might just die.
Someone is obviously trying to interfere with this.
My dick's been just took about his ass. It tastes like pepper chicken.
Jared, we cannot hear you. There's some music.
Okay. So thank you for that, President Ortega. Now let's again, I was asking a question by Jessica Ludwig, Director for Freedom and Democracy at the George W. Bush Institute. And the question is, what are your primary outstanding concerns for the people of Nicaragua? What steps would you like to see the international community take to see the human rights of all Nicaraguans respected by the Ortega regime? And we'll turn that next one over to Juan. And Juan, why don't you answer in Spanish?
Gracias, Jared. Muy típico del régimen, este tipo de interferencias a las que estábamos muy acostumbrados y ya se nos habían olvidado en la cárcel. Bueno, yo creo que el tema de los derechos humanos tiene que seguir en la agenda. Hay 44 presos políticos que se quedaron en la cárcel. Está Monseñor Rolando José Álvarez. Está el tema de los exiliados. Así que este es un tema que hay que seguir trabajando con la comunidad internacional y no dejar de poner el dedo sobre la llaga sobre el tema de derechos humanos. Sería realmente una verdadera lástima que después de todo este esfuerzo la liberación de nosotros lleve a un enfriamiento del tema, sino todo lo contrario. Esto es solamente el inicio, porque como decía anteriormente, aquí no solamente estamos hablando de violación de derechos humanos, sino de violaciones a derechos civiles, a la libertad de prensa. Existe en medios de comunicación cerrados, existe gente exiliada, están condenando a prohibir el ejercicio de libertades civiles de manera perpetua a personas que están siendo condenadas recientemente. Entonces aquí hay mucho trabajo por hacer todavía.
So Juan Sebastián was mentioning that, well, first of all, he was mentioning that this is something that can be inferred as very typical from the regime, this kind of interferences that they had even forgotten about them while they were in prison, first of all. After that, he was mentioning that the most important issue now and going forward is the importance of human rights and the importance of human rights in the agenda. We need to keep human rights in the agenda. This has to be the start of like a new, like the start and the continuation of talking about human rights in Nicaragua. He was mentioning there are still 44 prisoners left, including Bishop Rolando Álvarez and other political prisoners who are still there. Additionally, he says we should not forget, well, about the topic of human rights and that there are other issues, in particular civil liberties, which are not being respected in Nicaragua. For example, he used he mentioned the case of press freedom, people that are in exile, and other kinds of prohibition of civil liberties that is occurring in Nicaragua, even for the rest of like people are being forbidden of exercising their freedoms, for example, press freedom and freedom of expression and opinion for forever. And he was really he was trying to emphasize that, and that we should not forget about keeping the issue of human rights high in the agenda.
Great. So let's turn to next question from Rafael Mathus, which is, what is your message to the Nicaraguan people and to Daniel Ortega? So let me turn this time to Felix to answer that question. Spanish or English, and then we'll translate it.
El mismo mensaje que hemos mantenido en todo momento. Nicaragua es un país de todos y de todas, no es un país exclusivo de una facción política, de un partido, de una etnia. Nicaragua es un país que tiene suficientes capacidades de territorio para que todos podamos convivir en armonía, aunque suene algo demasiado idealista, pero otras naciones del mundo lo han logrado. ¿Por qué no nosotros? Las fronteras que nos dividen o que supuestamente nos dividen son fronteras que son creadas por los propios miedos. Yo creo que el señor Ortega actúa desde el miedo, precisamente porque tiene un régimen que no se sostiene sobre la racionalidad, no se sostiene sobre la legitimidad, pero existe del otro lado, y debo decirlo con mucho orgullo, una serie de organizaciones, de individuos, de personas de la más diversa índole que tienen un profundo compromiso con la no violencia. Nosotros seguimos con el mismo planteamiento que hicieron organizaciones como la Alianza Cívica, como la Unidad Nacional Azul y Blanco, como el Movimiento Campesino, como los diversos movimientos estudiantiles. Es decir, el mensaje de ayer sigue siendo válido al día de hoy. Encontremos soluciones que sean soluciones para aquellos que sufren más, que son los hombres y mujeres que todos los días no tienen la alternativa de irse de Nicaragua. No se pueden ir 6 o 7 millones de nicaragüenses de un país en donde hay personas que todos los días se despiertan para tratar de ganarse el pan de cada día. Mujeres que salen todos los días a trabajar en hogares donde ellas son las jefas de hogar para poder llevar el alimento, la educación básica a sus niños. Hombres y mujeres del campo que están sembrando los granos o los cultivos para los alimentos que tanto requiere nuestro país. Entonces, la situación del destierro como alternativa no resuelve nada. No se puede desterrar a la mitad de la población o a más de la mitad de la población, como se quiera describir, para solucionar un problema cuya verdadera solución es la democracia.
Felix now is reminding us about his message that he has been keeping the same message for a very long time, and that Nicaragua is a country for everyone, and that Nicaragua, even though the differences that can be found inside Nicaragua, they can be solved with democracy. He was mentioning that if other countries have been able to live together with profound differences, how could it be possible that Nicaragua could not do this in the same passion? In that case, he's reminding us about like his unique message of unity inside Nicaragua. As he said, other countries have been doing it, and he was mentioning that Ortega is someone that has been operating under fear because he knows he has no legitimacy. And he is also mentioning the deep commitment that different organizations are having inside Nicaragua. For example, the Civic Alliance, the White and Black Unity, the White and Blue Unity, the Grassroots Movement, and all of these organizations which are deeply committed. He's also recalling that exiling everyone in the country, 6 or 7 million people, or at least half the population, is not the solution to the profound differences that can be found inside Nicaragua. The real solution must be democracy, and he's really trying to emphasize in that as his unique and his message that has been that he has been trying to hold for many years.
Okay, so perhaps Juan, do you want to answer that question in English, and we'll translate that into Spanish? Again, what message do you have for the people of Nicaragua? What message do you have for Daniel Ortega?
En primer lugar, un mensaje. First of all, a message of hope. It's amazing the amount of written messages and otherwise that we have received in the last 24 hours about our release, our banishment. So there's a lot of hope that freedom is possible. We are kind of enjoying the beauty, the miracle of being free. Obviously free from prison, but we're not free, definitely. We have a long way to work to reestablish real and complete freedom of expression, freedom of movement, and all types of freedom. So I think we should think about this, what we're facing at this moment, and this sentiment of hope that gives the images of family members being reunited and people getting together after so many months or even years of separation, to remind us that there's always there's always a light. And I think the responsibility that we have as people committed to this struggle to reestablish freedom is to keep this hope alive, because if this hope fades, then our work will not be finished. So I think it's a very serious responsibility to for us, for all of us as Nicaraguans, as members of a same family, of the same country, brothers and sisters, that we should find a way of living together in the same ground and establishing basic rules of government, basic rules of living together. And I think that's possible. It has happened in the past, and I think it can happen in the future. I have no words or messages for Ortega and the regime, even though I was stripped from my house for almost 2 years. I only want to say that I don't have any hate, any sentiments of revenge or anything like that. It would be a waste of my time spending time in having that kind of feelings. I think history will tell that all these things, all these crimes, all these abuses that we faced, history will take care of those issues. And basically, I haven't thought about any messages to him. I don't think he will listen anyway. So I don't waste my time in sending messages to someone who is just concentrated and focused on keeping his power at all costs. But what I want to emphasize is that there's no hate or any sentiment or feeling of revenge at this moment. I think we should be grateful with God that gave us the opportunity to reinitiate our lives as a family, and I think we should be concentrated on that rather than expressing feelings against the dictator at this moment. I think it's worth the moment that we are facing at this time. It's a wonderful, and I don't want to get confused with other feelings.
Juan Sebastián está enviando un mensaje de esperanza, nos está comentando que en las últimas 24 horas ha recibido muchísimos mensajes de esperanza de personas que le han escrito y un mensaje de esperanza de que la libertad sí es posible. Sin embargo, nos recuerda que si bien está libre de prisión, todavía no está libre completamente. Nicaragua no está libre completamente, no hay libertad de expresión, no hay libertad de movimiento. Sin embargo, hay que mantener un pensamiento de esperanza, y eso se puede ver reflejado con el sentimiento de las familias reunidas después de meses y en algunos casos de años. Entonces también nos recuerda que siempre tenemos luz, siempre va a haber luz, y que eso le genera una mayor responsabilidad a él y a las personas que están en esta lucha por la libertad, y es la importancia de mantener viva la esperanza, y él lo ve como un llamado de responsabilidad que él tiene y las personas que trabajan en los temas de luchar por la libertad. Por otra parte, nos menciona que pues hay la posibilidad, digamos, es posible lograr unas reglas básicas de gobierno, una posibilidad de vivir juntos, y por eso hay que mantener viva esa esperanza. Y en cuanto a un mensaje a Daniel Ortega o al régimen, nos dice que no tiene ningún mensaje frente a Ortega, no tiene ni odio ni venganza, lo único que tiene son sentimientos de agradecimiento a Dios, y pues que será la historia la que se encargue de juzgar, y que no mantiene ningún tipo pues de sentimiento negativo, sino solamente pensar en agradecer a Dios y pues no perder el tiempo en enviar ese tipo de mensajes que de pronto ni siquiera pues pondrían atención.
Thanks so much. The next question we have is a very important one, which is who are the, this is from Dana Solomon with Reuters, who are the 44 political prisoners still in Nicaragua, and why were they not released? Let me turn that over to Felix to answer. I'm about to go. I'm about to go. Sorry. Let's see. All right. Well, good to know that what we're doing is bothering the people that matter. And I think that's the best illustration of it. If Ortega was not afraid of Juan Sebastián and Felix and all the political prisoners in Nicaragua, he wouldn't have kicked them out. And if people feel the need on his behalf to interfere with them talking to the world, what I would have to say is good luck. They're now free, they're able to speak their minds, and they're going to continue to speak truth to power and to call things as they see them. And if one thinks that joining a Zoom call and playing loud music is going to deter them, then they clearly have no idea who Felix and Juan Sebastián are, and their approach to disagreement is not a very effective one. So anyway, I'm going to turn to Felix with this next question. Felix, perhaps answer this one in English, and we'll have it translated, and then we'll go back to Spanish. We are thankfully coming to an end of the questions, so we're almost there for those who are still hanging on. But Felix, why don't you answer that question as to what you know? Who are the 44 political prisoners still in Nicaragua, and why haven't they been released yet?
Thank you, Jared. As I said, I don't have any detailed information. We haven't had the time to review in detail what are the reasons behind, but I can only say that they are all continue to be arbitrarily detained. Each of those 44 people are people that did not commit, any crimes, and they deserve to be free. I would like to emphasize a specific case of Bishop Alvarez, who is not only a religious leader, but a man who has inspired a nation, and we will not stop until we see him and the other 44 free.
Félix nos está explicando que, digamos, no tenemos detalles en este momento, no dio tiempo de revisar cada uno de esos casos con el mayor detenimiento. Sin embargo, lo que sí nos puede decir es que cada una de esas personas se encuentran en detención arbitraria, no cometieron ningún crimen, merecen estar libres. Y también nos hace un énfasis en el caso del obispo Álvarez, Rolando Álvarez, en el cual nos menciona que ha sido una inspiración para toda una nación y que por lo tanto no van a descansar hasta que esté libre.
Great. And I think we're actually now to the last question. And so we'll post this back to Juan. Greetings from Colombia, from NTN 24. Authoritarian leaders like Ortega in Nicaragua, Diaz-Canel from Cuba, and Maduro in Venezuela continue to be a threat to democracy in the Americas. What will your strategy be now from exile to continue the political struggle and to try to achieve free, transparent, and fair elections in Nicaragua and the return of democracy to your country? And why don't you answer this one, Juan, in Spanish?
Gracias, Jared, y gracias a todos por la oportunidad de expresar en este intercambio sus preguntas. Ha sido muy enriquecedor, sobre todo después de tanto tiempo de no poder ejercer este derecho a la expresión. Así que les agradezco mucho por sus preguntas. Realmente tenemos obviamente muy poco tiempo de haber salido de prisión, pero en lo poco que se podía hablar en la prisión, creo que hay un sentimiento de parte de los liderazgos que estuvimos presos en el Chipote de continuar esta lucha, de un sentido de comunidad entre todos nosotros, un sentido de responsabilidad y un sentido de compromiso de por vida para que Nicaragua no vuelva a sufrir estos abusos y esta destrucción de la institucionalidad. Ese es el ambiente más general. Obviamente, esta es una tarea bastante ardua que hacer, no hay que poner las cosas como no lo son, es una situación difícil. Ortega acaba de mandar al destierro a los principales líderes opositores por la razón principal, como lo han hecho los cubanos, de esparcirnos por el mundo y debilitarnos. Yo creo que precisamente lo que tenemos que hacer es recobrar ese sentido, o tener ese sentido de acuerpamiento en donde sea que estemos, aprovechando los mecanismos de comunicación que existen para trabajar por la unidad de una oposición que sea consecuente, que sea responsable y que ponga siempre el tema fundamental que afecta a Nicaragua, que es precisamente lo que hemos vivido, la falta de institucionalidad, la falta de los abusos a los derechos humanos, los abusos a las libertades individuales y públicas. Yo creo que al enfocarse mucho en ese tema como tema de agenda política importante, los nicaragüenses que están todavía en el país y liderazgos que han quedado en Nicaragua van a, o deben también retomar esta bandera y tratar de transmitirle a todos los nicaragüenses, especialmente a los que están en funciones públicas, a los que todavía, son una minoría, pero que todavía creen en el sandinismo, expresarles a ellos de que lo que está pasando les afecta a ellos mismos también y que es necesario un cambio. Así que es un trabajo, una estrategia muy profunda de comunicación, de trabajo político para que estos temas de la justicia, de las libertades públicas se puedan traducir en el bienestar de las personas, en que estas crisis que ocurren cíclicamente en Nicaragua son el producto de personas que se aferran al poder y que terminan afectando a todos por igual. Entonces, si nosotros logramos encauzar en esa línea de pensamiento, yo creo que estaremos llegando a mucha gente y generando este cambio a través de la lucha cívica pacífica, no violenta, un cambio democrático. Tenemos bastantes temas avanzados en asuntos técnicos, sabemos qué es lo que se debe de hacer en las reformas al Estado, en las reformas electorales, sabemos qué es lo que se debe hacer en reformas al Código Penal, el Código Civil. Todas las leyes que ha pasado Ortega son absurdas. Hay bastante trabajo de intelectuales, de abogados que saben, y esto lo veníamos discutiendo desde incluso antes del 2018, de todas las reformas que son necesarias hacer. Pero obviamente nos hemos enfrentado con una dictadura que es tenaz y muy fuerte. Y bueno, a una dictadura de esta naturaleza hay que enfrentarse unidos, todos como nicaragüenses, y sobre todo trabajar para que este plan de reforma efectivamente tome efecto. No está fácil la tarea, no hay que ser idealista en ese sentido, pero sí hay que, con un pie en la realidad, trabajar desde ya y lograr estos cambios. Y yo estoy convencido de que estos cambios se pueden dar.
Well, Juan Sebastián is firstly thanking everyone for their questions and for their participation in this press briefing. He actually mentioned that it has been great to be able to express himself after not being able to exercise this right for many months. So that was one of the first parts of his intervention. Also, he was mentioning that the leaders that were, the opposition leaders that were imprisoned, they have all the same sense of community, and they all have like a similar idea of what should be done. They know the technical aspects that should be solved in Nicaragua, the laws that should be amended, the absurd laws that the Ortega regime has issued and that should be reformed, the reforms to the codes that should be done. They do have also a big sense of responsibility and commitment, and they all share that, all the leaders of the opposition. He's also mentioning the importance of a big communication strategy in order to deliver this message to both the people of Nicaragua and the people that are public officials in Nicaragua, and to make them understand how also the fact that there's no institutionality in this country can also harm them. So it is important to highlight the communication strategy and be able to deliver to everyone this message of unity and a message of understanding that there are certain individuals that get ingrained into power, and they hold into power so much that it start affecting other individuals, including, well, mostly everyone inside the Nicaraguan state. He is also he also likes to emphasize that going against a dictatorship as hard as this one is something that can only be done with all Nicaraguans together. So that's the importance of a message that should be delivered to Nicaraguan society, a message of unity, in which he says that at least the opposition leaders that were in prison, it's a message that they share.
Well, thank you very much to everyone for attending this afternoon. And as I noted, we will upload this immediately to YouTube, and I will tweet out the link in short order from there. So again, thank you very much. I think both Felix and Juan Sebastián will have much more to say in the coming days and weeks, and thankfully they will be able to do so. I think that Berta and Vicky will enjoy taking some time off from their advocacy work. I don't suppose that either of them will ever fully give it up, but as all of you have known all along, we made very, very clear from day one that our struggle was not a political struggle, but a human rights struggle, and about restoring to Felix and Juan Sebastián the dignity that they deserved as human beings, and the urgent need for the Ortega regime to release them and all of the political prisoners of Nicaragua. As noted earlier, the job is not done. There's still at least 44 other political prisoners in the country. And of course, Nicaragua remains a brutal authoritarian regime. And there's a desperate need to restore democracy to the country. But that is a battle for another day. Today, we are just filled with gratitude to so many people around the world who helped in this effort that led to this extraordinary set of developments in the last 48 hours. We're grateful to God for guidance and for support and for his love. The fight will continue, and we will move forward together. So again, thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend. Take care.
Thank you, Jared.
Gracias.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.